Hey, how you doing? Alright, let's do it to it. Go over a Marshall game. Okay. Let's do it to it. I got a drink and then we'll get started. This is a game between E.M. Jackson versus F.J. Marshall. So E4, E6, Bishop C4, Knight F6, Pawn D3. Have we done this one already? I'm wondering. I don't think so. I think it's very similar to the one that he played, though. The theoretics frown on this move because it is likely to lose a pawn. However, it has been my experience that white loses time and weakens his position in gaining the pawn so that the sacrifice becomes a worthwhile investment. Pawn takes, knight takes, and queen to e2. Ah, he goes after the pawn. That's what he says. Right. Hey, how you doing? Oops, sorry about that. That's not the right move. I gotta put the right move in. He played f4, which is actually a question mark here. The queen bishop comes out to f5, and this is actually an okay move. White has, if now pawn takes pawn, this is the way he's saying, hold on, he played knight, king, knight to f3, so if he takes, oh wait a second, let me see. Oops, I have to go back. have the wrong bishop. And then at this point, we play knight here. And so, but if he takes, then castles, threatens knight. Wait a second. Did I forget another knight? Let's see. That's right. Let me make sure I did this right. I'm going to English notation. This is a little difficult. So, okay. So if there, castles, knight, f3, bishop comes out. Okay, we're still good. We're good. With a strong threat of knight takes, or pawn takes, yeah. Oh. Well. Okay. Hey, we all have bad tournaments every once in a while. You know, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Bishop takes knight. Queen takes bishop. Knight f6, there we go. Oops, not knight f6, right? Knight, that's got to be deleted. It's knight here to attack the bishop. Nowadays, he says the simple play would be knight takes, and then bishop takes, and pawn takes bishop, queen takes, and then castles. With a clear advantage, the text leads to more complicated play after this, but it's an advantage for black. But he went more for getting the bishop, going for the bishop attack. So bishop to b5, and then castles. Now he takes the opportunity to actually win a pawn here. Bishop takes, pawn takes. The interesting thing is if he tries to win here, if he tries to win this pawn, let's see, what did he actually play? Oh, b5. If he actually tried to win, he I guess could, but you have to always be on the lookout for Kerplunk. And if he castle, he can't castle because he'd be castling a check. And let me see here. If here, not there, you don't want to play there. That'd be horrible. Let's see here. Maybe just develop the knight. Then you have check. Okay, there. And you just grab the. Then if the queen grabs it, then you have rook coming. And so you just gotta always be on the lookout. So that's why he went f5. He wanted to avoid all the complications of taking and have the bishop come in with some power attack. So Frank actually played e4 exclam because he's trying to get him to actually either take with the queen. See, if he takes with the queen, that'd be the biggest blunder ever, so he can't do that. He's got to take with the pawn. Of course, you see, if he took with the queen, it'd be a double question mark lose because of that. But you never know, you may get an opponent who makes a mistake like that. This stops castling on the queen side. And the king can't castle now because of the bishop covers the castling spot where the king would go, and the queen stops castling queenside. So white's king is stuck in the center, and this is not very good for for white. White's in a world of hurt right now. Rook to and now we're taking scope on this pawn here with this rook. So the knight's going to have to come out and guard it. With his king stranded in the center, White's game is almost uncomfortable. Is most uncomfortable. That's what he says. And we were right. The knight had to come out to guard this. I didn't even look at his notation, and I knew what would have to happen. He could play. He is saying knight b3. Knight b2 or d2. But then you have knight to d5, and he can't take this because of the pin with the pawn. So let me see here. So he's in deep trouble, he says. So this is kind of his best alteration that potentially he could play bishop e4 and try somehow to get castled, but I doubt that that'll ever happen. Marshall will stomp out that potential really fast and hard. Okie dokie. He's coming in. This is to stop this infiltration, and also to put a bishop maybe there. He's saying that potentially rather than the move that black played after knight here, he could have actually tried bishop to d2. Knight takes knight. Bishop takes knight. I was thinking that, but if he castles, he really can't castle at that point. It's the bishop can just implant itself right here and cause chaos there. So he's saying that the best move is I should take it with the bishop, trying to get this rook out and attack the queen. So g3 was played, which knight to knight 5 here, and he's trying to go after this, get a little bit of fork action on the king. Okay. 1 second. Okay, I need to take the there we go. We'll take care of that. Actually, bishop takes was played, and then queen to rook 5 check is coming in with an attack, and then pawn here, rook takes, check, and basically it's winning. The position is a winning position for black. So now I kind of see why he played g3. I kind of got a he wants to prevent the queen from coming in and then the rook coming smashing down like that. So b4, queen to e2, queen to queen 5 with the attack here, bringing the rook over. It's all over. He's slowly building up. King to f1 was played. Knight goes back because there's no point anymore to being there. Of course, if knight takes, then kerplunk, the queen falls. So king to knight, king there, knight takes knight, pawn takes, of course. Queen takes, the pawn checks, so he picks up a piece, a pawn. I mean, not a piece. Queen takes, and then rook takes. King to b3 or f3. Queen rook to king 1. And black has regained his pawn and has a tremendous lead in development. But the broken pawn position is actually pretty bad, really bad for white. See, they both. It's interesting how they're equal. These positions are almost spot on equal. But one thing that black has that white doesn't is development. So that's why the engine judges it a pawn. Bishop to queen, bishop d2, rook to e, and this is he's threatening to mate on f2. I've actually seen this. There's a mating type of setup. It doesn't work because usually there's a pawn here, and then this would actually potentially work. It's in Tactics for Kids. They had a mate like this, but there's a pawn here that prevented the king from fleeing up here. So, but very similar to that setup. Queen, rook to protect the bishop. Rook b check. King comes up, and then pawn rook check, exclam. This involves a careful calculation, as we've seen. There's a calculation that we have to be really really careful on. Here, check. He takes, is forced. And rook to king, check. These are have to be all forcing. All forcing. King to knight 4. There's potentially, I think blocking is losing, if I'm not mistaken. I'm thinking, let me see, could he actually run? King G4 is forced. King G4. Promote that to main line. And then the pawn, check. King Rook 4 moves over. What he's saying is that he potentially can hold out a little longer with the pawn push check. Knight here. Pawn takes. King takes. Rook it's saying something to do with that. That's not it. Okay, this is a little different. Okay, different line. Alright. Yeah. This is a Frank Marshall game. He played, he actually does a really good move. King to knight 2 here is an exclam. He plays bishop f4 trying to hold. The king takes the pawn and is now coming down for a squeeze on the other king. Bishop to knight 5. And then this is a double exclam. This is a double exclam move. I want to see what you think about it. And he actually, white resigns at this point. What do you think the move is? Yep, you got it. Sorry, this is actually the mate. My bad. That's not the mate. What am I missing here? Oh, sorry. No, here. This is the mate. Gotcha. Let's delete all that and do it again. There. Here. And then there's your mate. So he resigned at this point here. Right here. The player resigned because he saw a mate too. Double exclam though. That was beautiful. Let's put a line. There we go. So I know where we are going to pick up. Okay, we'll go over that game. Okay, let me get a drink. Okay, so you're white then. Oops. There we go. Surprised you didn't grab this. Okay. Yeah. Well, there was a, but we'll just stop right here for just a second. Yeah, you're gonna trap the queen. I kind of saw that. Yeah, but that there was, I think it was the Queen of Uganda, if I'm not mistaken. She was able to, and she was a chess player. She only had one book. Then she didn't have any books. So what she did is what she remembered from the books she played in her head. And so they even took chess books from Bobby Fischer. And what happened was he played games in his head. You're just gonna have to learn how to make a chessboard in your mind, and you're just gonna, when you have time for chess, you're going to just have to really concentrate and make it memorable. So it makes an imprint into your mind, so that when you're not able to do chess because of maybe you're on a trip or something, or you're at the store or something and you're waiting in line, you can actually play a game that you went over. I know, it's Bobby Fischer got his chess books taken away for a while. So, you know what you have to do is just modify your system. You got to somehow work really hard to get a visualized board in your mind, and like maybe a 2D board like this, and just play it out, right? Because things are gonna happen. Like when I go on trips, that's what I do. I all the games that I priorly went over, I actually play them out in my mind when I don't have a board. You just play them out in your mind. That's the whole basis of blindfold chess, is creating a board in your mind and playing it out like that. So knight to c6. So knight there. So b6. Okay. I was wondering, could you have actually played d5 in this line here? There's some. There was the Karen's Cup. the lady who actually won the Karen Cup said that she studies from books. She studies actually from like books, and that's how she improved her play. It's Valentina, I think that's her name. And so I figure if she won, yeah, if she won, then you have to just do the best you can with what you got, and just make the best of it. Yes, she is a grandmaster. She is a grandmaster. Yes. So what I was looking at d5 here, and if e takes d, I was kind of taking a look. Would potentially rook e1 check, and if knight goes to knight to e7 here, we have the it's kind of a hard thing. You could actually double up here, and so that if he tries to castle, you actually grab a piece. Well, you can do computers. You can do computers. It's not but remember, if you don't have access to a computer and you have a board and a book, or better, it would be actually a board in your mind, then you can actually go over. You can be reading basically a book like you read the paper. Bobby Fischer did that. So this is kind of an idea that I was looking at for you to kind of play here is this. And also, if he checks, and let's say he just moves, you have a little bit of a problem here. You still have the ability to bring your queen back, and then potentially send Harry up the board to cause a little chaos, and maybe even, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but you know what? You gotta do when you're castled though, and you have a pretty good strong position like that. Sometimes you have to make sacrifices. So bishop b5. There. d5. There we go. Now you're doing it. I always think of the phrase, where there's a will, there's a way. E takes. Oh. Wow. I thought for sure you were going to throw a check there. And then if he plays knight here, then you do. Yeah, I kind of can see, but I still like this queen move there. It's debatable. I think though you could actually at this point check here, take there if you wanted to, and then play up. Maybe even after this, sacking the bishop and playing for c5 might actually be a playable idea. And if he tries to hide, then you have that type of a setup here. Or you could just throw in an in-between check move, but you got to be careful of trade downs. Well, that would lose a rook, so you can't do that, my bad. So he'd just have to keep moving down the board. and then now you can actually take, and this is or even better might be just bringing the queen in. Now that I look at that, this actually is just devastating. And if he tries attacking your queen, just thinking, ah, look, I grab a piece. He could try bishop takes and then move the king up to f7 too, and not take. But then you gently just say thank you very much and game set match. The queen would have to take at that point, and you win. So you always got to look at Greek gifts, and if he takes here, you can always bring your knight in. So you have that too. And you know, you have so much threats. You just got to look for the most forcing move. You don't want to, because you're so developed. You don't want to wait around at all for your opponent to castle, and when he castles, you're because your position is it's okay, but you have to always be on the lookout for opportunities. So queen there. Okay, there. All right, so far so good. Takes. Knight takes. Rook takes. You can grab this pawn here. And if bishop goes there, you always have rook takes. You got to be careful though, because this is a if you take here, he actually picks up a piece. So you can't allow that to happen. He'll pick up a piece via that way. So the only way to do that, if he takes here, is to play bishop takes. Rook G. He played Rook G1. Yeah, you got to be careful there. So you even got a problem with that. So maybe bishop takes. Same type of sitch though, I think arises here. Yeah, it's got a sweet that's a forcing combination. I believe the problem was when you allowed the castle to happen, because you just didn't have any play after the castles. You had to, yeah. I think you should have checked first after played there. I think that the line of just this here was kind of almost forced. It's one of those tough ones. Then you can go after the king, and if he yeah, castles. It was castles. I believe it was when he was able to castle that was the win. Hey, you know what though? As long as you learn something from it, it's never a loss. It's just another way of another thing that you can actually put in your belt of knowledge. I always think like that with Batman that he has his belt, the Batman belt. We're doing puzzles right now. Yeah, there we go. Okay, we'll get onto it. Not to worry. We'll get onto it. We will get onto it. Not to worry. I'll be efficient so we can get as many done as we can. Alright, wait to move. To move and mate. And two. I think he can take, if we played here, he took there and we played there, he can, oh, he can't take. Ah, it's pinned. Yikes. Nice job. Yep. Good work. One down. White to move. White to move. Let me see here. I got it. Got it. Rook d6. Knight takes d6, and then e7 mate. Rook d6, knight takes, and then mate. Let's see, knight to e5, knight e7, king d, and if d6, he actually, I think, can run to c3. He can run to c3. It's all based on a sacrifice. A sacrifice. Yeah. There was one who did that for us, for sure. Okay, dokie. Let me see here. Once for all. Okay, I gotta make sure I see one pawn here, bishop there. Okay, 2 pawns. Ding, ding, ding. And then doubled my rooks. And we're happy to go. Now we can. Oops, I gotta get white. That would help. Boom. Come on. Yep, there we go. Let's get her done. Yep. Nice job. Bam. That was fast. That was grease lightning. Let's get us some pawns. Boom, boom. Oops. There we go. There we go. There we go. Nice. Hey, strive for as fast as you can go. You know, that's the whole thing. You're laying down new connections in your brain so that you can think faster. So, never hurts to go faster. That's funny. Oh. There we go. Now we should be 110%. Yep. Yep, wait to move and mate. Wait to move. Okay. Excuse me. Let me see here. Got it. Do you see it? Do you see the move? Do you see the move? Wait for V, okay. Remember, these are all forcing mate too, so the forcing move is there. Do you have any ideas? There you go. There you go. If bishop takes, bishop e7. If pawn takes, bishop e7. Yep. There we go. We got her. We got it. Oh yeah. We're happy today because we're solving puzzles. Yes we are. Yes we are. We're having fun solving puzzles today. We are solving puzzles and we're having fun doing that. I know I'm singing as I work, but you know, the whistle as you work type of thing. Sometimes if you whistle a song it helps, or if you in your mind think a song, it makes the work go by faster. Okay, there we go, still good. We're good, we're good, we're good, we're good, we're good, we're good. Yep. Okay. I like, sometimes I listen to classical music when I'm studying like Beethoven or Bach. It really helps. Oh. Classical music is actually what I like to listen to, so I know. Takes, okay, here. Then if he takes there, we get that. So there, okay. Yep. It's all based on sacrifices, and there you go. You got it. You have to always find what music kind of works for you for study. Some players actually will play with music going on too. You can have ear things, and then one of those cubes, and you can have music going if you want. Or some like Arena Crush has she has ear plugs. You can do that if this outside sound bothers you. It all depends on what helps with your performance as a chess player. Ah, come on, don't do that to me. Okay, I need to put the king there. Let's get the king. Wow, black's totally got lots and lots of material, coming down. Okay, that should be 100% on. Red is ring. There you go. White to move. Yep, got it. We got her. That's right. And if he takes there, now we gotta find out. We actually have knight d6 if he takes the rook. And if bishop takes, then you have knight takes c3 is mate as well. There's two different mates. One is queen, of course, and if takes, then knight d6 is mate. Yep, you got it. There you go. Okay, we're doing pretty good. We're doing okay here. We're chomping along. And then the king comes here, and then the rook goes there. Oops, wrong. Rook's not there. Rook is right here. And the king is right there. Just gotta make sure. So there. Yep, we're good. White to move. Okay, be blessed. I'll see you tomorrow. That's the mate. There you go. Spot on. This one's like right in your, staring right at us. We got this. So what's the move here? This is it. You got it. This is right. This is staring us right here. Staring us right in our face. It's right there. Don't complicate it. Just think simple and go with it. Do you got it? You got the puzzle? Yep, there you go. Boom. This is the last. No, not last. There's after this one. We have one more after this one here. Not this one, but the one I'm going to be doing. Okay. King here, queen there, a rook here. Bishop, knight, ditch the rook, and we're good to go. There we go. This is we have one more after this. This is another straightforward one. Excuse me. Yep. You got it. There we go. One more, and then we start our end game. Hooray! We love the end game. Oops, we love the end game. Let's do it. Clear the board. Clear the deck. Say rook here. Oops. So bishop and two rooks. 1, 2. And a king for both sides should do it. Let's check the there we go. White to move and mate. White to move. Okay, I gotta erase this. On to the next one we go. We gotta push there. Well, I have a if you want to, I have our stuff pre-recorded. If you go to YouTube, Chess Cruncher on YouTube, you can watch. I just downloaded all of our stuff so that you can watch when your computer. Okay. So be blessed, and if you can stay on for this is the last one, give it your best. Last one. Oops, that was just me. That was just my my book. I hate when they slip like that. 1 second. Sounded worse than what it was. Just it fell a little bit. There we go. Nothing hurt. Nothing hurt. That was good. I was a little worried. I thought it did get hurt, but it didn't. Okay. Let me see here. What do we have for a mate? Ah, this is checkmate. Rook f8, bishop takes, and then queen d5 is mate. That's the mate, and then we'll get on to some of our chess endgame. So let's do it to it. Okay, we were going to go over Sentry's rule. A Zugzwang isn't possible if two free squares along the diagonal remain open to the defender, if like the bishop. If the defending bishop has less than two squares, the stronger side will usually win. This is kind of what he's talking about here, is clear the board. Clear the board. Right here. Okay, there. Let's see then. Okay, here. White wins. That's two black kings. Oops, there we go. I have to make this into a study. The following illustrates this rule rather nicely, while also showing the student how these ideas often allow you to successfully advance a pawn that's as far back as the fifth rank. White wins. If white can safely push the a pawn, the game will be won. White's first order of business is to chase the bishop off of this diagonal here. You got to chase it off there, off the f1 to a8 diagonal. Easily done by moving the bishop to a6. So this here. Let's hold on. What am I? By moving the bishop to a6. This will allow black's bishop to control. We want to come here. This diagonal. This will force black's bishop to relieve this diagonal. But he will find it impossible to remain there due to the diagonal shortness, and only one square will be available. According to Sentry's rule, this means that black's defense will break down. So what he's saying is bishop b7, bishop b7, bishop d3, bishop a6, bishop e4, and then bishop b5, exclam. Phase 1 is complete. Black has to try to set up a blockade along the shorter, thus trying the a6 to c8 diagonal. Bishop b7, and at this point we go bishop d7 here, exclam. Naturally, if we take the bishop, that loses. So this would actually be a double question mark losing move. And it's a draw at that point. Must be avoided after bishop d7. We have the sentry rule. If the defending bishop has less than 2 squares along the current diagonal, Zugzwang will occur, and the stronger side will win. Indeed, this position is Zugzwang, since right here, this position right here, Zugzwang, since black's bishop only has 1 free square along the A to C diagonal. Thus, any black king move will allow the bishop to fall, because the bishop control is here. So thus any black can allow that, and any black bishop along the h1a diagonal allows the pawn to safely make its way up the board. So bishop g, and then a6, bishop f3, a7. Since bishop c6, bishop c6 will have to actually for white will have to follow. So if black tries something like bishop here, the bishop c6, and you win. 2 extra split pawns. We're going to be doing one with 2 extra split pawns. All right. White to move and win here. White to move and win here. And we have 2 extra split pawns usually win, since in most cases the stronger side can play to promote one pawn and securing the knowledge that the defender can no longer draw by sacrificing his bishop for the pawn, and will eventually promote. The pawn will eventually promote. So the first idea, d6. But we have to remember, this only works with bishops of the same color. Remember, bishops of opposite color, there's a really good chance for a draw in this scenario. Queen a5, bishop a5, not queen a5, bishop a5. If bishop b4, then bishop f6 will come, followed by king c7, and then the pawn will promote. So bishop f6, black has no way to deal with king to a8 and d4 and then queen. So we have to make this into a study. We gotta do sentry's rule. Queen a5, or bishop a5. And here in white resigned. There's no way to deal with here and the pawn push. As always, one must be mindful of the case where one of the pawns is a rook pawn of the wrong color. So now we're going to be going over what could potentially happen if the pawn is the wrong color for queening. Black draws by giving up the bishop for the e-pawn, which leaves him with the basic bishop and wrong color h versus king. So bishop bishop g6, bishop g4, and the extra pawn usually secures the stronger side, but white can't make any progress here, so it's a plain old draw. Now we're going to be doing two connecting pass pawns. Let's see, works. And d4 check. White wins. An important idea: pushing the d pawn takes control of the dark squares. The c5 and and then f4, and the bishop controls d5 and e4. So f4 and e5 are controlled by the pawns. d5 and e4 are controlled by the bishop. While the bishop keeps an eye on the light squares, this team control over the key squares forces black's king back. White must be careful not to have played this move. This is a blunder. Double question mark. Because d5, and the game is a draw since white can't march the pawns up the board anymore, and the king doesn't have to move. The king doesn't have to move here. The bishop will just come here, back and forth, and the king will just stay there. But thankfully, white didn't fall for that. Bishop, king d6, and now e4 puts it in the same predicament again. Bishop g6, king e3, and we're staying on the opposite color of the bishop, and we're keeping control of these two pawns. So the bishop, oh yeah, most definitely, we want you to take it. Just take it, and then we'll take and we'll win. We'll outmaneuver you. King e3, king 3. It is very important to support the pawn with the king, our pawns with the king. Bishop h8, or h7, e5. Again, we're controlling the key squares. d5. Remember, d5 would be a double blunder again, because then the king can go to e5, and there's no way to kick the king off, and back and forth would arise with the bishop. So e5, we have to keep that going. King e6, king f4 now. Now we can actually push and attack the king. Bishop c2, d5 check. King has to go to d7. Bishop h3 check, because this controls, that's controlled, that's controlled. And the king has to move to e7. He has to move to e7. And then we go d6. Check. King has to go to d8 to stay off the same colored and control. e6 again. Queen a4, bishop a4. King e5 to stay in contact with the pawns. Of course, there's nothing wrong with playing e7 either, but I like the idea of making sure every piece is in their perfect usage. That's what Jeremy Silman says. So you could potentially have played this here, and then the king would have had to move there, and then you can bring it in. But he says, just, you know what? Why risk anything? Just bring them in. Bishop b5. King f7 or f6. Now everything's at its optimum placement. Bishop a4, e7, check. King e8, bishop b5, bishop g4. And what we're going to try to do is get rid of bishop b5, and then d7. Exclam. And that wins on the spot. Because well, he says, he figures, why not force mate? It takes bishop h5 is mate. He says though you don't have to do that. You could actually just play bishop h, and then when king goes to e7, you can actually queen, and black will be forced, and he'll eventually lose as well. So it's pretty easy as long as you don't allow your opponent one of two things. Don't let the defender give up the bishop for both pawns. Don't let the defender acquire a blockade by creating holes which the defending king would live on the opposite colored bishop, of the opposite color of your bishop. Let's see what we got here. Queen endgames. Let's set up a couple of these. Okay. This is what it says about queen endgames. In general, the study of queen endgames are not something a non-professional should waste his time on. I recall playing a 5-minute game against Fritz where I ended up on the happy side of a queen and pawn versus queen position. I had no idea if it was a theoretical win for me or not, but that didn't matter. It was clear that I could basically take advantage of the computer for a long time. Surely Fritz lit up and announced that I could mate in 83 moves. he said, horrifying. I did something that seemed logical, and Fritz said mate in 87. Then I turned Fritz off, who needed needed basically some time, he said. And this different queen and pawn endgame theory shouldn't be halted until you're basically, he says, this type of queen position that we're going to be talking about usually happens when you're 2400 or above. So, but I figure this: why wait till then? Let's learn it now. One second, I need to get a drink of water. Excuse me. That was good. So let's do it to it, my friends. It's really hot. It was really hot here today. It was like, really, really hot. Sometimes it's really cold, but it's really hot here. This is actually a game from Philidor, 1777. It's a draw. Black has all the bases covered. Excuse me. His rook is stopping the king from infiltrating to the 6th or 7th. His rook can make time by moving at 2 posts, like to c6 or to e6, back and forth. A rook is only allowed to defend one safe post. White's queen isn't able to get behind the pawn, and it will never be able to chase black's king away from the e7, e8, or c7 or c8. And we can even try this and give it our best go at it and see if we can. Let's give it a go. Queen h8, rook c6, queen g7, king e8, and white can't improve his position since the queen versus pawn endgame can be very complicated, and the rules depend on those rules change as pawns advance, and are far beyond anything that a non-professional needs to study. But you know what? We're going to study them anyways, because you know what? We're going to be a professional. So you know what? Sufficient to say that if you keep in mind our one example and its rules, you'll have something to grasp onto if you're down material and this kind of defensive situation arises in your game. Here we're going to set up another one. And let's set up another one, and then we'll see if we can. We'll see what you say if this is a draw or not. I'll give you a second to think about it. Go, get a rook here, get the king there, put a study. Surprisingly, the weaker side can often draw by creating some kind of blockade, as we saw in a queen and rook and pawn. Here, it's a draw. White draws easily by shuffling his rook to e4 and g4, and a pawn and the a pawn. But the reason the king versus pawn versus king and pawn endgame is easily drawn, it's important that the student is aware of this kind of blockade, since it can occur from many positions that might at first glance appear hopeless. The following position showed a simple example of this. A simple example of this here. Let's give a this is one example, but we're going to do another one. Then he's going to show us how to get here. So let us do it. Let us do it. We're gonna do it, do it, do it. Okay, got it. Whew. Okay, get rid of the king there. He shows us how we actually get here is by bishop takes d, check. Black seems to be on his way to victory, since his queen and pawn should normally run through over a rook and bishop. However, the bishop can sacrifice to create a blockade here. So e takes, rook takes d, queen to c7, king h1, and queen h7. But this is you got to be careful that you don't bug. Bugs are a pain sometimes. Okay. Rook to e4 is, he says, playing with fire, because queen c5, bishop g3, d3. Rook takes is actually a mistake here. This is a mistake, because you take here, bishop takes, and then d2, and black wins. So you got to be careful. That's why check, king g1, queen b1, and then king h2, and black isn't getting anywhere. You have to be careful here, though, that you don't play king to g1 as a complete blunder. It loses the game on the spot, because queen c5 picks up the rook, and it's game, set, and match. Okay, so we're summing up everything now. The complex positions can't be solved unless you have a firm foundation of knowledge behind you. Flowchart method, which is really nothing more than recognition of previous absolute patterns, It depends on the student having thorough mastered the material in the early sections. Rook endgames. A rook and rook pawn versus a knight or a knight pawn on the 7th with the stronger rook in front of it. The defending rook behind is a draw, even if the knight, and we'll go back, and I think we have that. Let me see. I'll have to go back to the studies. Let me go to our studies and pull it up. Come on. A rook on the 7th. Okay, rook on the 7th. Well, a rook on the 7th with the stronger side's rook in front of it, the defending rook behind the pawn. It is easily won if the bishop pawn exists on the other side of the board. So basically, if and then he has we talked about the futures a rook and 2 pawns versus a rook and 1. See, a rook and 2, we have that here. A rook and 2 and a rook and 1. This is what he says here. A rook and 2 and rook and 1. Passed pawns are usually winning for the 2 pawns. So if you have a passed pawn, like one over here and one here, you're going to win. Okay, the position featuring rook and 2 passed pawns and 2 passed pawns versus a rook and 1 passed pawn are usually winning for the 2 passers. We know that. In a rook and 1 versus rook endgame, unable to acquire a perfect Philidor's defense setup unless this is what it says. Okay, an inability to acquire a perfect Philidor's defense doesn't necessarily mean doom for the defender. If the king is in front of the pawn and the rook is actually placed behind it, yeah, you can still save the game. In a 4 and 3, a rook and 3 versus rook and 2, a rook and 2 and versus rook and 1, with all the pawns on one side of the board, the defender's goals are to trade as many pawns as possible unless striving for pawn exchanges that severely weaken your formation. So you got to watch that you don't, if they're on one side of the board, you got to watch that you don't trade that makes more weaknesses that are harder for you to defend. Keep the rooks as active as possible. Preferably try to defend the king down with a pawn. So try to keep the king in a really good defensive position if you're the one with the 3 and your opponent has 4. Keep trading down till you end up with a Philidor's position, which we know from experience is a simple draw. Okay, bishops of the same color. This is a interesting one. Where the particular the difference between the opposite color bishop gives the defending hope of a draw. The same colored bishop usually guarantees the side with the extra pawn serious winning chances. Bishop and pawn versus bishop. When up a pawn with no other pawns remaining, the stronger side has winning chances if the pawn is advanced and if the defending king isn't able to get in front of it. Sentries rule. For bishops and advanced pawn versus bishop, if the defending bishop has fewer than 2 free squares along the current diagonal, Zugzwang will occur and the stronger side will win. Queen endgames. Queen versus rook and pawn, or queen versus pawn and rook and 2 pawns. The defender's main hope is to create a successful barricade and keep the stronger side's king from approaching the defender's pawns. That's kind of what we've gone over. And then we're going to be going into the next section, which is, I'm really excited about this. And I'll give you a teaser of what it's going to be. He has final thoughts here. This section toughens up the material, or tightens up the material you already know, and shows you how to make use of your adequate acquired knowledge to figure out positions that appear to be extremely complicated. Having done this, you're more than ready for one final step. Where in the past sections I only wanted you to move on if you felt you had a serious, you wanted to pursue in chess in the endgame. If you want to get better in chess, what he's trying to say is you have to improve your endgame. Okay, win the passage. Okay. The next rating group. Now, I highly recommend you study Part 8, Endgames for Masters, and Part 9, Endgames for Pure Pleasure. Why the change of heart? Because these 2 parts of the books are concepts driving anyone who has mastered the material through 1 through 7 should find that Part 8 and Part 9 basically are enjoyable, easy to understand, and lets you experience basically the beauty of the endgame. And you have a long and impressive endgame database. See what he's trying to say here, and I'll sum it up because it has a lot more there. I don't want to bore you. Is this Part 7 was if you wanted to in Jeremy Silman's was if you wanted to jump to basically master, and it's so worth it to go for your Grandmaster title. But Part 8 and 9 is going to be the culmination of all the 1 through 7 that you've done, and they're going to show you master games that apply the principles that we've learned, so that when you look at the end games that the Grandmasters do, now you can appreciate and understand the ideas that the Grandmaster is doing. And the section that we're going to be doing in for Part 8, the rating is 2200 to 2399. The chapters are Cat and Mouse, the principle of 2 weaknesses, all kings and pawn endgames are confusing, the pleasure of a knight, the king is a fighting piece, and queen and pawn endgames, passed pawn rule. Those will be in the next chapters that we're going to be doing. Do you have any questions before I log off? I'll give you a minute to think about it. Okay, I'll take that as a no. I appreciate that you participated, and I thank you for spending your time on Chess Cruncher TV. And it's hard going over end games, and I know my reading could be a little bit of a thing there. Sorry about that. Sometimes it's hard to follow the sentences along. It's easier when I use my finger and do it that way. So I'll have to start doing that. But you know what? You have to always keep in mind that endgame there's three parts of chess. There's the opening, the middle, and the endgame. And one area that's mostly neglected is the endgame. So don't let your endgame be neglected. And if you like what you see, click follow and join us tomorrow as well. And if I also on YouTube, I have a Chess Cruncher is there, and you can also look at the ones that were previously done and review those if you'd like as well. And click subscribe too. That also helps to build up the subscribing numbers. That's nice. But one thing we have to remember is every long journey begins with one small step, like what Yasser Seras once says. And we become what we think about. If you think you can do something, you will. If you think you can't, you won't. But either way, my friends, you're right. And Bruce Lee also talked that unless you take what you know and apply it, it's for nothing. And if you're not willing to do something with it, what are you going to do with the knowledge that the Lord Jesus has given you, or the talent He's given you? You don't want to take it for granted. You remember the one talent person. He took it for granted. So we don't want to be like that one talent. We want to be like either the 2 or the 5, not like the one that buried their talent in the earth. And when time came to show account for their talents, he said that you're a tough and you're basically a steward who I didn't want to lose my coin or whatever he gave them. I hid it in the earth. Rather than put it to work in the market, his talent into helping others, he hid it in himself. Not a wise decision. And so that's why Bruce Lee said he feared not the person who practiced 10,000 individual kicks, but he feared the person who practiced one kick 10,000 times. I mean, that's who he feared, the one who practiced one kick 10,000 times. He didn't fear the other one, because think about it. You may, if you do like 10,000 different kicks, the chance of you precisely kicking the target is not high. And he also said that the human potential is limitless. The Lord has given us a wonderful mind that could either we can use it to serve Him or serve self, and we don't want to serve self. We want to serve Him. And what we have to do when we sit down and to study on the over the board, our OTB, we have to put on our Grandmaster glasses. And one thing that if you're a talented chess player, hard work. This was a phrase that I had just read on Facebook. Basically, is this that hard work will beat talent because talent won't work, and that's sad to say, but that does happen. And then we have to treasure our victories. So treasure your victories and learn from your losses. And remember that mistakes do not define you. It's how you handle the mistake that defines you as a person and as a chess player. But the main thing that you want to do when most people are playing, and I know you're studying and you want to play, remember, you're a chess cruncher. What is your goal? If your goal is to become a grandmaster and it's so worth it to go for it, then you're going to have to put some time in. Even if you get frustrated, you're going to have to put some time in. Because you can't spend a second twice, you can only spend it once. But when basically your friends or your family comes over and says, "What you doing?" "I'm a chess cruncher." What's a chess cruncher? A chess cruncher hangs up their coat, they hang up their hat, they sit down and study when most won't. A chess cruncher does, and that makes all the difference. And then I'll leave you with this one thought. Take the talent that you have and use it to honor the Lord. It is so worth it. And as Wesley so says for Lord Jesus, as I say, God bless, and I'll see you next time on Chess Cruncher TV. Have a blessed morning, afternoon, evening, and Lord willing, I'll be back on tomorrow. And we'll keep pushing forward on to our next chapter. Do some Frank J. Marshall's Best of Chess and some of Susan Pogar's dad's puzzles. We'll do some more of those and endgame and have fun. Great job today. Go Team Chess Cruncher, hoorah, be blessed, and keep studying chess and honoring the Lord. Bye bye, and I'll see you tomorrow. Great job.